Hello everyone, welcome back to another flight sim video. My name is Adam, and in today's video we're in Xplane12.3, the latest beta. And I'm doing this video because I've just put in two add-ons. Map enhancement, which gives photoreal satellite data streamed in, much like Microsoft, and Sim Heaven, which gives all the autogen and trees on top of the world. Now, I'm a bit unsure, really, if I will continue using both these add-ons. The map enhancement version is the Pro version, and I'm on the Mapbox version, although I cannot get for the life of me any of this to work. So I don't know. It doesn't do anything in real time as it says it should do. But I'm kind of unsure, like, if I'll use this. Now, these two add-ons are, as I'm sure everybody uses these add-ons with Xplane12 will know, that they are actually really decent. They do enhance things to a more realistic, real-world look, but not everywhere. It's a mixed bag. Obviously, the satellite data is totally dependent on the availability of that data and the quality of the original source. Now, with map enhancement, you have loads of different maps you can choose from. China HD is just maps in China. Google Maps, although you need a proxy to set it up with. You've got the latest Bing version like Microsoft, and you've got hybrids which will use basically all of them. I'm still in the middle of finding out which one is like the best. And obviously sometimes you get things like this where the tiles are mismatched in color, but not only that, you also get issues where they probably won't even load and you'll have black everywhere. Now, my internet connection, this is totally dependent on, because it's being streamed in live, is like the basic dial-up connection. You know, it's 65 megabits download. You know, it's so poor, and yet this still works in the Pro version with all the high settings set to high. So the highest resolution mapping is coming in, even at this altitude of only 6,000 feet. You know, it looks really nice, and is an improvement, I will say, over the default. Even though the default texturing can get a higher resolution than this mapping, this looks really good. Obviously, the higher you fly with this stuff, the better it looks. You know, you don't get the repetitive nature of default looking like FSX. You know, you get a really realistic looking sim, and you know, the Sim Heaven sim objects laid on top really do help to enhance the realistic layout of the world. Again, some areas are going to be better than others. Here's a tile that hasn't even loaded in properly. It's all patchy, and that can happen, and that's a bit of an immersion kill, but it doesn't happen all the time. Again, it's down to internet speed, so 1 gig up and down probably won't even suffer from this. Or it could even be the map that it's coming from probably is incomplete in itself. Who knows? But the reason I'm doing this video is because I've only just started using this, and I'm sure a lot of people have been using it for a while, and I kind of feel that really there are locations in the world which the default is actually better. If we look inside the custom scenery folder for Xplane, this is obviously all the add-ons that I've probably got in, which, to be honest, I haven't got that many. I've got Antarctica, Extended Lights, Sim Heaven, What Xplane have done in terms of handcrafted airports and cities, and then of course the mapping. Now, these handcrafted locations, I've checked out New York, and in all honesty, New York default, which has been handcrafted by Laminar Research, looks way better than these two combined. And I'll show you what I mean in a moment. We're in the UK right now. I've just taken off from Birmingham, heading up towards Liverpool. And in all honesty, I gotta also say, when I pan my camera slowly, when I'm using OBS, it kind of jitters and stutters. It's not as smooth as when I'm not running OBS, so apologies for that, although you may not see it in the video because of the way OBS is set up as well, but it is there for me, and it is rather annoying. And for some reason, although now I say this, it's not, but before my frame rate was locked at 30 and I couldn't get it above 30, and I really wanted 50 frame rate for smoothness, but now it is above 30, sod's law. Anyway, so yeah, Sim Heaven and Map Enhancement. Map Enhancement is pretty easy to use. Now, I will say the links, like if you Google it and it'll tell you go download this executable, run it, and then, you know, you're good to go type of thing. Oh, hello. Yeah, we're running out of, hang on. Yeah, we're all good. It'll tell you to run it, and then, you know, it doesn't really show you. There is a tutorial on the website of everything in here, like what you need to do and everything, but it is very bare bones, and in all honesty, I haven't found a good video that really does help set this up properly, because there's some things down here that you need to do and it fails quite a lot, and you have to sort of, you know, and that might be just because of my internet connection, but I had a real tough time installing this, so I thought I'd just go through it real quickly. I'm sure that most everyone's already using it, but if you're not, or if you're finding it's not working properly, or you're running into problems, hopefully I got some help here for you, because I'm using it flawlessly now everywhere in the world. I've gone to North America, I've done Europe, I've checked out Australia, I haven't checked out Asia yet, but there are a few things you have to do that I only found out through trial and error. It didn't really explain this, so let me go through. So obviously the first thing you'll do is download the latest installer, because on their website it might not be the latest. Now the latest for me is 3.0.22, but for you it might be a different number. Obviously you're going to run that, and it will bring up the installation afterwards for this. The very first thing you need to do, if you're deciding to get the Pro version, which I highly recommend because the maps are in a higher resolution against the free version. It don't matter for anything of this, because I can't get this to use even in the Pro version, but the resolution is completely locked to a lower quality in free. Now, if money's tight, you know, you have to have this set to medium if you're not on the Pro license, same as this. And in all honesty, the difference is really noticeable. Obviously, if you're flying airliners at like 30,000 plus, then the free version's probably all you need, because really down on the ground, you're not really going to be there that long, you know, if you're flying 30,000 plus feet in the air. So you really can just kind of, you know, make do with the free version. But for me, I do way more GA flying in Xplane than I do commercial airliner flying. So for me, the Pro version is totally worth it, and it is literally only like 35 quid for the year. So, but the very first thing you want to do when you do this is set up your where you're going to put your cache and your base pack. So it'll ask you for the game path of Xplane. That scan button did nothing for me when I ran it, so just manually pick it out. It's looking for the executable, the exe, so wherever that is, and then your base pack. Now the way I have my layout here on my PC is my Xplane, sim is on my G drive. I have my cache and my base pack on the M drive. These are both SSDs. I highly recommend not placing it on your C drive, simply because Windows is on there doing things, and it's got its own cache and it's moving its own files. And if you put Xplane with this that also has a cache involved and base pack involved, then that's a lot of data for the single cable going into your motherboard. Even if it is an M.2 drive where it's plugged directly in, it still has a kind of maximum load of data that it can transfer, and so you'll be overloading it, bottlenecking it. So I highly recommend spreading all this out. So Xplane is on a different drive to my C drive, and then the maps and the cache are on another drive. You could even put the cache yet again on a different drive, and they'll all be feeding from different cables into your motherboard, and your GPU. So effectively, it probably is best to have the cache coming off a different drive. Now the only reason I have it on the same here is because I believe it's going to continually be accessing and updating this, and recalling it from the data of that, so as well as whatever it streams in, or probably just what it streams in. But I kind of feel like them sitting on the same drive, it doesn't have to go far to be used, whereas it probably would be better put on another drive. Anyway, once you've done that and you've set your paths up, first thing to do is download it. Now if you're using SimHeaven, do not use overlays. You'll have trees everywhere. And then basically what you want to do is just run the installer. Now obviously I've done all this, so I do not need any of this. But what you'll find is you'll have in your base pack folder, you'll have a list of zips and an exe for each of these, as well as some patches. And it will go through and it will download all these zips, all these exes, all these patches, and put them in there, and it should extract them afterwards, and you'll be left with exactly this. But for me, it didn't extract anything but Asia by itself, and that was it. Maybe because a lot of these had issues downloading, probably due to my connection. So if that is the case, then you go to the website here, and I'll put this link in the description box down below, and you can manually download the patches, the continents that you need, not the overlays if you're using SimHeaven. SimHeaven had its own issues, I feel, when trying to install that, and again didn't really get help in the documentation or online for it. So if you're wanting to get the SimHeaven stuff as well, and you could use SimHeaven without the map enhancement, and it will just replace all the default stuff, what you could do is, and again I'll put the link down below, you basically go down and download each of these continents, and it will give you an Antarctica, which is quite nice, but just for sim objects obviously. Oosh. Well, one hand on the wheel, man, it don't really work that well, does it? And then basically you'll download the which is here, you'll download the actual pack, and it will look exactly, when you download it, like this. You'll have this is what you'll be downloading right there: vegetation library, and then all of the continents. And then basically you'll open up all of the zip files, which I'll give you one as an example, and it will look like this. And it's these folders that you just only need, and you just put them in your custom scenery folder, like so. So they're all sitting in there. Now the thing is, there is a patch, and you need to place the patch in every single pack. Number 6, objects, ground, and you'll replace 2 files. I think it's parked cars and something else. Otherwise, they say you could get crashes. Now, I forgot to do it for one of the areas. I never got a crash, but I still put the patch in just in case, because you never know. Are we going in the right direction? Yeah, we are. We're almost there. And then I'm going to show you New York, and I want to show you New York, this version against the default version, and you'll see what I mean. Now, why am I explaining all of this? Well, I found it difficult because not everything was readily available, and I kind of had to work through it. It wasn't tutorialized very well, and it is a bit of guesswork. They failed quite a lot for me when I was downloading them, and I didn't know why, and I just persevered, kept on trying. I found that this downloads a lot better than downloading from the website. Just keep running it until it's fully downloaded one of the areas. You really do have to check to make sure you have all the parts, because if you're missing a part, it won't extract them. It won't run the extraction process. And if you haven't got, at the end of the day, these files in here at the end of your extraction, which I just deleted the zips afterwards to save space, but if you haven't got these folders in, then it hasn't done it correctly, and you're not using it. Basically, it's not running, and then when you go to fly, nothing will load in. The only way you'll know it's loading incorrectly is if this box starts flickering pictures like a slideshow really fast. That's like that. It's loading in these tiles as we go. So that's that it's actually loading into the sim. And I gotta say, it does look okay. Like, we're still at about 6,500 feet, and it looks really good, and the good thing about it is, I don't know if you can see it, but there is a layer of an overlay on top of this stuff, which is Xplane's ground poly layer, and that still loads in on top. So you still get the fine detail of cement and grass. You can just about see it. It looks like grain here, and that still loads in on top of all this, which really does help the realism, I feel. But this is a replacement for default. I'm not sure if default buildings are loading in, or if default roads are definitely not loading in, but it's got a complete, the map enhancement and the sim heaven is a complete global replacement over default. But if you're flying down low all the time, I'm not sure that this is the best thing. I really don't think, and I want to show you why now. So we're going to change our location, and I'm going to go to New York, which I'm hoping the map will just update and I don't have to bloody restart. So if we go to East 34th Street and change it to daytime so we can actually see what's going on, I found that because Xplane have customized, New York City as one of their, enhanced cities, and it'll be true for all of these cities, that it's a lot different when you don't use this stuff versus when you do. And I want to just show you and point out a few things. Now, again, how good these add-ons run is down to 2 factors. One, the availability and quality of the map enhancement tool. If it hasn't got the maps or they're not in good quality, then it's not going to look good. The sim heaven stuff is all done, preset, It does improve regionalized things, but from what I understand, this Sim Heaven stuff was made years ago for Xplane11, and yes, it's compatible with Xplane12, but they have not updated the package for Xplane12. It doesn't take advantage of the lighting, the reflections, the new features of the new beta Xplane12.3, and so the buildings are basically textured, squared, boxed rectangles, like, you know, simple shapes for houses. They're not like, you know, complicated shapes, you know, and complex shapes. They're very shoebox shapes with the textures on them, and the textures could be better, I will say. You know, that Sim Heaven really could do with a global update to really enhance that package, because I feel that the default sim objects, the default textures, the default buildings, trees and all that are actually better than Sim Heaven. They add way more detail, you know, in not only their models but also the textures than Sim Heaven does. And I'm not knocking Sim Heaven, it's fabulous, it's great. You know, without it I wouldn't have Antarctica, because I only found out that you don't get Antarctica with Xplane12. I did not know that, you know, and when I loaded in I was like, where's the world gone? You know, what happened? And then I realized, I found out, yeah, you don't get it. So I got Antarctica down to Sim Heaven and a freeware add-on. Thank you. But it really could do with a really big update, because it is, I would say, an old add-on, outdated old add-on, and here is why. Let me show you why. So this is New York, okay, and you know, I'll come back here at exactly the same time with defaults and you'll see. So this is New York, okay, and we're going to position the camera just there and take a screenshot. But look at the so these roads here, like, yeah, they're okay, they're very basic, you know. They tend to go skew whiffy though. They tend to go very, very strange, you know. They don't really line up that well, and I'm not sure if any of this is default leaking through, to be honest. I don't think it is, because in default you'll see houses here instead. But this is basically what I mean. If you look at the buildings, just the buildings, so this shot here, it looks very flat, 2D, you know, to look at. The texturing isn't that high. Like, it could be better is what I'm saying. Like, it is great, and I'm sure it's realistic to what New York looks like, the buildings and that, but it kind of looks a bit cartoony in my opinion. It looks like I'm looking at like FS9 or FSX more so than Xplane12. Okay, and if we look off to the distance of the actual end of New York, now this shot don't look too bad. You know, it looks okay. In fact, we'll take a screenshot of that as well. Okay, so yeah, like, it looks fine. It looks absolutely fine. Okay, now I want to go to an area where, and we'll come back here in a second, but I just want to show you one more area, Portland, which is another detailed city, as it were. We need Portland International, and I don't think we can use real world. Yeah, we can't use real time, because, but we'll use about the same time as we did just then, so it'll be kind of early-ish. Now this city is one of the default cities again that they've hand made, and when you load into Xplane for the first time, Portland is like one of the airports that is kind of like highlighted default. I don't know if it's the default airport, but it is kind of highlighted as default, like, you know, selected, and it is highly detailed in default states. Now every time I fly in with map enhancement and Sim Heaven, I haven't been able to see map enhancement. It just kind of loads the default terrain. Now, if that's because either the map enhancement is less of a quality than the default, and so the default overrides it, I don't know. Is it a case of the highest quality textures load on top? I don't know. I don't know the logic of Xplane, to be honest. But Portland, I can only really see Sim Heaven working. Okay, so which is good, because you're really going to see a difference now between Sim Heaven and what Xplane default can do. I will say, when I was changing the airport, I did see this flicker a couple of times, so something has loaded in, but I've never seen it properly loaded in here. So let me get this to the air, and I'll show you something here which I think is pretty interesting and may change your mind about Sim Heaven. And hopefully it will get Sim Heaven to update their lovely package properly. I could never get this thing in the air, by the way. Like, it's oh, it's right. Don't worry, we'll get in the air. I'm not a real pilot, by the way, guys, in case you hadn't noticed. One thing I will say, I absolutely love Xplane12. The lighting, even though I changed the night lighting, but the lighting model, the way they have rendered the atmosphere, the way that the texturing is done, because obviously this is a default handcrafted airport from Laminar Research, and it looks amazing as a default airport. I think absolutely amazing. So there is a housing estate over here, I believe, or it might be on this side of the hill. We need to get over to it. Yeah, it's over there. So you'll notice that the mapping, honestly, I'm not really sure if it's loading in. Probably because they've handcrafted this area, and so it's of higher quality than the mapping for this area, maybe. I don't know. It works in Seattle, though, and I believe Seattle is also another one. No, it's not. But yeah, the mapping works in Seattle, but it kind of doesn't work here. This is the default layered grass, and you'll notice if we go over the houses, so let's just dive bomb some of these roads here, you'll notice that the houses, like, they're all in blocks. It's neighborhood here. Yeah, I understand. It's like a neighborhood here, right? And each block has a single grass texture on it, and if we pause it, you'll notice that these houses are just houses, kind of square in nature, and there's a lot of repeating ones. 1, 2, 3, 4 in this single shot. Five houses repeating in the same shot. And even though they have sheds and somebody has a pool halfway under their own house, right, that's it. They just sit on top of this grass texture. Now, this grass texture is the Laminar Research texture, which I gotta say is quite decent. Look how that is high quality, I think. When you zoom in, it high resolution rather. Sorry. And yeah, I haven't got any tree replacement, so I don't know if this is Sim Heaven's trees or Laminar's trees, but I think it's Sim Heaven. I don't know if it does place trees in or not, but roads get a little funky, as you can see here. And look at this road texture, okay? In fact, we'll take a screenshot of it, all right? And we'll take a screenshot of the neighborhood. Let's see here. These houses here. Right there, right? So, got an example of the houses. You'll just... houses that sit on a flat green texture, whilst in itself looks very nice, and all of the buildings and models will be regionalized, so this is what they'll look like at this area of the world. But if we go to another area of the world, they will look different, and they're all probably more accurately placed than Laminar Research. Although from what I understand, SimHeaven uses OpenStreetMap data. I imagine they use the free one, you know, because it is quite expensive to get the licensed one, which is fuller data. OpenStreetMap is a free kind of open tool. Oh, hello, look at that. Trees color as you zoom in. Huh. Is basically an open source of data, so people provide it freely, and it's not complete around the world, but if you pay for it, it is complete around the world. So I don't know who gets the free one and who pays for what. I can imagine Laminar Research will be paying for their stuff to license it properly. They're a company. SimHeaven, I imagine, is using the free one to cut down on costs. But let's load in now to New York default and this area default, and I just want to show you the difference. Okay, so this is now, we're back in Xplane and completely default. I've removed, well, just made another copy basically for default. So everything here is default. The only thing that isn't default is there might be night lighting edits that are still here, but it's not nighttime, so you won't be able to see it. But everything else is absolutely default. Now, I don't know if you can see, but you'll notice that my frame rate, before it was between 30 and 35, now it's between 50 and 55. So having the maps and the SimHeaven basically reduced my frame rate by 25 frames, you know, having them both in. So that's a bit of a bummer. And you'll notice the texturing is exactly the same on the ground. We've still got that green splashy, and it does look like there's a bit of mixed in kind of attempt at photoreal here, you know, so it's kind of a mishmatch. But let's get to that little neighborhood which was over here, and let's have a look at the not only the roads but the houses. And you're going to notice a massive difference. Oh yeah, forgot about that. So I believe it was this little neighborhood here. So obviously we've still got the blocks, you know, the neighborhood is still split off into blocks, although they are different now. They go lengthways up rather than going across. And I think we'll pause it there. So you'll notice, actually no, we won't pause it there, we'll pause it on the next one. This one. So you'll notice that every house pretty much has a fence with some foliage hanging off it, and the texturing is unique. So you have a driveway, a backyard with, you know, trees in it and different kind of texture blobs, as well as a front yard, you know, with some foliage in it. And yeah, like every house is quite different. And if we look at a section of it, you know, yes, we've got pretty much, they're all the same structure, but they do look slightly different. So that one and that one look the same as that one. This one's slightly different because of the roof, but it's like they are the same basically. The 1, 2, 3 and 4 are the same model, but they all look slightly different because either they've got a different roof or something outside of the house is different. Like this one's got a blue thing here, like bins on that side. That one's got bins on that side. So it does actually randomize things. the texturing on this ground, you'll notice, is a lot better than what we saw before. Like although yeah, these are running lengthway across like the other one, but it's not just one single texture. You'll notice that it's actually like made up of this texture in the middle, and then the garden textures, the driveways. All these tiny little details are missing from Sim Heaven. They don't exist. It's just literally one flat texture with some basically like kind of like these type of shape houses plopped on top. And you'll notice that these shape houses are pretty much like, even the structure might be the same or similar, but they have like a different shape completely, you know, and it's a lot different. And you'll notice, if I can find a traffic junction point, the roads are absolutely different. I think I've kind of like where is it? Although we might have to keep going for a bit or fly back around, but we actually, it was on the other side actually. Let me circle back around. Like, there is so much more detail in the defaults than what Sim Heaven give you. Like, this I feel is much better than the Sim Heaven stuff. Look, you even got like the petrol station there, but here, right, you get a junction like this. Now let's bring up the pictures that we had before. So here's a picture of the road. So I mean, one would say that the road is more textured than it is here, but it is of lower resolution than this one. This one's got a street light, which I'm not sure. Yeah, they're slightly different street lights. It's got a 7-Eleven. How cool is that? But the road texture, I would say, is different. Here in the Sim Heaven version, it's of lower resolution, but it has got a little bit more detail, you know, on this. But obviously it doesn't, like, that looks like a default road coming across it. Like, there's no consistency basically. Let me go back to that sort of neighborhood that we had. I just feel that the default in Portland, which is one of the handcrafted areas by Laminar Research, has a lot more visual fidelity detail in it than Sim Heaven and Map Enhancement, which, to be honest, Map Enhancement I can't get running in this area, but even the autogen down here is a lot better than it was, you know, from Sim Heaven. The placement of it, the detail of it is a lot better. So I think it was this little bit here. If I can try and get the right. So let's look at the houses. So here's the houses from Sim Heaven, and you'll notice like they're kind of randomized. You know, they're not all exactly the same. This one's just at a different angle to that one, but these two are exactly the same house. But they're just plonked on top of this larger texture, and that tree is not from Laminar Research. You'll notice there the trees are different. If they're better or not, I don't know, probably about the same for the trees, but you'll just notice the difference between the houses. If I can get this screenshot in at the same time, you'll notice that these houses have just a lot more detail than these. The shapes are more randomized, and the texturing is of a higher quality than Sim Heaven. If we zoom in, like, not here, I guess, like, it looks probably about the same, but they've all got these little tiny details that Sim Heaven lack. Now, if Sim Heaven, please, if you're watching, if you can update your areas to give these small, like with the picket fences, the bins, the bushes, all these little tiny details, your product would be amazing, you know. But like right now, it's more generic, I would say. It's more lackluster than defaults. The default here, I feel, surpasses Sim Heaven, and the frame rate. So in that screenshot, I was getting this is 53, but I was paused. But up here it says 60 to 70. So that's the difference of frame rate between using the default and then this, which default, I gotta say, looks really good. But let's go to New York now, and let's see what that New York City handcrafted airport looks like. Oh, New York would be helping it. Now instead, so I think the time was a little bit more like that. So it should look pretty much the same. So just to refresh our mind, this is the area we were looking at, and then we looked towards the city, the other end, and that's what it looked like. So that's New York, that I was getting 30 frames, 30 to 35 FPS at, and this is what it looked like, basically. That was New York, and yeah, it looks okay, you know. From a distance and from a height, when you're flying up high, it's gonna look fine, you know. I think Sim Heaven and the map enhancement is great for airliners when you're flying high. So let's get up into the air. I think the sim's paused. Yeah, we can pause it. So I think we was up to about that altitude, and whoa, straight away we got a building in the way, so that's interesting. Let me try and back out a bit. I think we might need to go a little bit higher just to see above that building. So straight away there's a massive difference. So if I frame it, we're not going to see what's behind this building like we did, but it's pretty much the same as this area here. So if we look down here at this area, which I know is not exactly the same spot, but this is what represents what's behind that building that we can't actually see, and we look at that screenshot again, you'll notice here there's a massive difference. Even in this area here for Sim Heaven, this is the same area that I'm looking at here, and there's literally nothing here for Sim Heaven. But here you've got all those houses, different ones, all with like little features of fences, bushes, you know, bins, cars, front yards, driveways, just nothing there. And if we try and have a look at this spot here, which is behind this building, I believe. So if I can maneuver the camera, you'll have to forgive me, I'm not exactly savvy with this, which is here it is. So right there is the same spot, which the roads still look weird even in Xplane, but that's the same spot. You'll notice how, look how lackluster the detail is in that spot compared to Laminar Research's default. It literally, this has more detail. It's got houses, it's got trees, where yeah, it's got trees, but the texturing is way lower resolution, which that's from map enhancement. There's like one house there which is very small. Here they're of the proper size, and like if we zoom out and look and go back to where we were before and sort of frame it to be exactly the same as the screenshot. So that's basically, yeah, about the same shot. You'll notice that really there's only, well, none of the buildings have been retained in the default, but there is the difference in default to Sim Heaven. Now you'll notice one thing that stands out straight away. These buildings are not, Sim Heaven buildings are not reacting to the light that is coming down. You'll notice here that they are reacting to the light, because here it's a lighter and then it's a darker, and the light is hitting these buildings, and there is a lot of repetitive buildings. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 buildings of exactly the same, where here, I mean, I don't see that much repetition. There is a little, but there's not much. But they just look a bit cartoony. It looks like a Simpsons video here, whereas here the coloring is more accurate. They look more weathered as well. They don't look weathered at all. They look almost like they're brand new here. Like if Sim Heaven can go in and sort of add a bit more weathering detail to these buildings, or make them react to the weather properly, because yes, there's a light side here and a dark side there, but there is no reflections on any of these windows. There's nothing shining, whereas here I can see that yes, stuff is reflecting the light. Here you can see it reflecting. There's a shadow down there and, you know, up here, whereas on here it's just a straight, you know, shaded area going all the way down. But here these are reflecting off other things. The light is basically more like these buildings are more suited to this atmosphere than the Sim Heaven ones. So for me, I prefer the handcrafted look of New York from, you know, Lamina Research versus Sim Heaven, because Sim Heaven, the coloring is too bright. They don't react to the atmosphere and they look too like brand new. Now obviously at a height and an altitude, you know, it's better probably, like in terms of accurate placement, because here I don't know if it is accurately placed, although it's a handcrafted city, so it probably is. It's even got a heliport on that one, where on this one we don't have anything like that. But yeah, I just feel that this shot looks way better in default than Sim Heaven does. And now let's turn towards the other end, and you'll notice, like, straight away from me, these trees, these houses, the ground, the rooftops, the buildings, for me looks way better than that. You'll notice that these two buildings are still there, like, but you'll notice how shiny that end is compared to that. Like, these are properly PBR'd for this atmosphere, whereas Sim Heaven's ones are not. So for me, again, the default New York looks way better than the Sim Heaven New York. Like, it's probably down though to the fact that these look weathered and they're properly PBR'd for the atmosphere, and if that can happen to Sim Heaven, then bonus. Now my frame rate in New York was 35. Now granted I've got the sim paused right now, so I'll unpause it, but my frame rate here is 40 to 43 compared to the 35 I was getting with Sim Heaven and Map, which I gotta say, this doesn't look bad at all for a default. Like, it looks legit, you know. I think this is a fantastic area. Now, that's basically the comparisons over, okay? My final thoughts are that if you're flying 25,000 feet plus, the map enhancement and Sim Heaven are absolutely fine to use, and you will enjoy the realistic mapping of the world, because, you know, there are parts of the world, like in South America or Africa or Asia, which will benefit from photoreal satellite mapping from Map Enhancer, you know, versus the default. But if you're flying below 10,000 feet in GA conditions, I just feel the default wins on this one. Like, it looks way better, less cartoony, more realistic, and works better with the environment, you know, than it does the Sim Heaven version, which doesn't sit with the environment, looks a bit more cartoony, you know. And yeah, just everything looks brand new. It's like every building has had a fresh lick of paint or has just been built, whereas here it looks like it's been lived in for a while. So if Sim Heaven's watching, please update your add-ons to reflect weathering, proper PBR for Xplane Beta 12.3, and add a little bit of those details that you see, you know, here in the houses area, where every house has a yard. It has a different texture from the surrounding, you know, texture that it's sitting on. It's got a driveway, it's got paths, bins. Add those tiny little details in as well, please, and your add-on will be lifted. So my final thoughts are, if I'm flying the Cub, I'm flying in default. If I'm flying in those cities that you know, Xplane have customized, which are these here: Budapest, Chicago, Dubai, yada yada yada, you know, or the airports from Aerosoft or from Laminar themselves. Like, I haven't even checked out any of these yet, but if I'm flying in these locations here, I will be basically using the default sim. But if I'm flying anywhere else, then I'll use Sim Heaven and map enhancement. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts. If you know any tips and tricks, the documentation from Sim Heaven does say that you can exclude parts of Sim Heaven, so it doesn't show. Now, if that's just, you know, doesn't show Sim Heaven stuff and nothing shows in its place, or does it revert back to the default? I don't know, but I'm not sure that the default is sitting, you know, in the Sim Heaven shots. It doesn't look like there is any default buildings here at all. I could be wrong. I don't think there is. But if there is a way I can have the default sitting on top of Sim Heaven, please let me know, because the documentation isn't that easy in explaining how you do that. It does say you can exclude, remove, or replace models, but it doesn't really go through a step-by-step tutorial, and there isn't one on YouTube. So if somebody knows, please let me know so I can have this with Sim Heaven. Anyway, thanks for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.